Wizards of the Coast brought us the reserve list in 1996, and they've been trying to break it ever since. Hi everyone and welcome back. MTG Moxman here. If you're new to my channel, welcome aboard. I hope you enjoy the content today. Make sure to smash that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell, and of course, you can support this channel on Patreon or through YouTube subscriptions. Thanks a lot everyone who tunes in each and every day. So, before I get started on today's video, I want to give a big shout out to Unhinged Magi. They brought this as a video just yesterday, and I want to put my own thoughts and feelings onto this one because Wizards breaking the reserve list could be a big deal and have massive implications. Let's get started. So in the beginning, before the reserve list, we had amazing sets out there. We had just finished off Legends. I remember going to the store and not being able to get as much as I want. It was a couple of packs, 3 packs I think you were allowed. I still remember the cards I opened. I did a video on it at one point. And at this point, Wizards decided to do a reprint set. They realized that the game was becoming extremely popular. It was outstripping what they had already printed. They didn't want to go back, so they said, you know what? Let's take some key cards and let's put them together, and we're going to call that set Chronicles. That was the best and worst thing they have done. Okay? They reprinted it so it was available to all the players, but they reprinted it so much it destroyed the value of the originals for basically 15 to 20 years. All these old Legends cards, like the Elder Dragons, they were worth nothing. And it's all because of Chronicles. This set came out in 1995 and within a few weeks was universally hated by anyone who had older cards and had spent cash to get Legends, Arabian Nights, or Antiquities in the Dark. Remember, when this set came out, a lot of us younger players were happy. We may not have had many packs of this cards, but anyone who had bought and paid for cards on the secondary market, which was very new at the time, rose up in anger over this. Wizards realized very quickly they had to do something to save their game, and that is when they created the very first iteration of the reserve list. And you need to remember that it wasn't just players who were mad. The very early LGSs, which were basically comic book shops, some of the puzzle shops that got into this game, they started in singles. They had started to open packs, the early stuff, and put it out there for sale. And to have Chronicles come along and sweep that value aside and say, you can't charge me $60 for that Nicobolus because I can get that whiteboard one right there from a pack for $2 or $1 or 50 cents. Some of those early LGSs never recovered and they were wiped out. Wizards early on really did rely on LGSs for their business. There's been that relationship since the beginning. Without those stores, without the LGSs out there, Wizards was in trouble. Players are angry. They're in trouble. They create the early reserve list. Now, the reserve list has gone through changes over the years. It is not a static document that says, this is what it is. Wizards chips away at it. They nuzzle, they massage, they bend whenever they can to get what they want, to try to produce the products they want to produce without angering too many people. But sometimes they really don't care. They're going to push the envelope. So that brings us to the next part. So it says here the reserve list was created in the wake of protests of Magic card players over their collections and being devalued during 4th edition and Chronicles. I don't remember 4th edition being a big deal. I just remember my friends and us being upset they didn't have dual lands anymore. But Chronicles was a kicker. I heard it all the time from friends who would come down from Toronto and some of the big cities and say it was just a massive thing. Stores were mad, players were mad. I kind of remember that stuff as a teenager. Now, when you read the rest of this, it talks about Wizards of the Coast policy to reprint any card in a white border, to make the black border ones the originals, the OGs, and to keep them as collectible as possible by never reprinting other cards in a black border. So you could reprint Nicobolus 20 times, but he'd never be reprinted again in the black border. It wasn't really a bad idea, but just because of the time frame and as a new game when it came out, it's like how some of the other games print like cold foil for Fab. Like they make certain things harder to come by. I think that was Wizards' intention back then, and they just did it too early and messed up. So Wizards of the Coast reserved the right to continue to print non-standard versions of their cards for sale or promotional use such as factory sets and oversized, like when they did the collector edition set. It's different from the rest, right? So that's how the creation of the reserve list got its start. So now we've got the start of the reserve list. We have tried to calm the public down. We want them to know we're gonna back you up with a solid way of saying these cards aren't being reprinted. They are gonna have value. And the players did calm down. The stores calmed down. Now the reserve list has changed over time. It hasn't stayed static. It has moved around. That's Wizards keeping its foot in the door in case they need to make changes. They've taken cards off, they've put cards on. And that brings us to the next part, the revisions that they have done. Check this out. In 2002, they did a revision stating that no cards from Arcadian Mass or later sets would be reserve list. Commons and uncommons from limited edition were removed from the reserve list due to an overwhelming public support. Don't you love that? Overwhelming public support. And they did a poll on this, I believe. Now, in consideration of past commitments, however, no other cards would be removed from the list. The exception was Feroza's ban from Homelands, which was reprinted, yada yada. You guys get what I'm saying with this. They've done revisions. They have taken cards off. And it says they have, in consideration of past commitments. They can still change things to this day. They choose not to. But the fact that we've allowed them to do it in the past means their foot is in the door. They can make changes. Now, in the 2010 revision, the original policy only applied to non-premium cards, meaning that reserve list cards could still be reprinted as premium exclusive cards. This was applied to the dual decks of Phyrexia versus the Coalition and the From the Vault relics. The Magic community's reactions were to a large extent negative. Starting in 2011, no cards on the reserve list will be reprinted in either premium or non-premium form. So you can see in the beginning, Wizards had the reserve list created because people panicked. But as Wizards grew in size, they relied less and less on the reserve list to form their backbone of purchasing power and consumer confidence. As they grew in size, they realized maybe we can erode the list a little bit and see if we can draw in more money from the public, more people exposed to some of these cards. And that's what they tried to do with From the Vault relics, which brought back cards like Memory Jar and Karn Silver Golem, as well as amazing cards such as Mox Diamond. You know how much I love that card, right? But then you see here the Phyrexian Negator. That was put into a dual deck. You see the original over here. Then you see, of course, the new foil version they tried to bring out as a premium edition. If these things had gone through unchecked, we'd already have Black Lotuses in fancy gold borders nowadays. It didn't come to pass, though, because the public really got upset. It went all over the place. I do remember this coming around. But it didn't end there. Remember this. They also did the Judge promos. They did cards like Gaia's Cradle, Yawgmoth's Will, and of course Wheel of Fortune. These are all reserve list cards that I'm sure Wizards wishes they could take off the reserve list. So instead they printed nice fancy Judge foil promos that the judges could put in for and try to get those prizes, and they were worth quite a lot of money. And you know what, let's face it, the judges are underpaid already, so I thought that was kind of a cool thing. But it did breach what people considered to be the reserve list. Wizards thought it didn't. A lot of players thought otherwise because they had money invested. And it just shows that even to this day, there is so many people heavily invested in Magic that they push back when this stuff happens. And they do it because they've invested time and money into the old cards that Wizards said they would protect. So Wizards backed down and they did this. And now we have our current definition. Reserve list cards are cards that will never be printed again in a functionally identical form. A card is considered functionally identical to another card if it has the same card type, subtypes and abilities, mana cost, power, and toughness. The exclusion of any particular card from the reserve list does not indicate that there are any plans to reprint that card. The reprint policy applies to both English and non-English cards. All policies apply only to tournament legal Magic cards in printed form. Wizards of the Coast has and may continue to print special versions of cards not meant for regular gameplay, such as oversized. Okay, I find it very interesting that during this video we've seen Wizards back down from the reserve list player base a couple of times. On the screen right now you're seeing a Jizam Djinn. That is a 2 black, 2 other, 5/5 iconic card from Arabian Nights. Deals 1 damage to you during your upkeep. This was the bad of the bad. The best of the best in its heyday. Nothing matched it. Not even a Shivan Dragons. That cost 6. This only costs 4. Let me show you something here, though. Let's click up this bad boy. This is a sliver. Most of you know the name sliver. This is called a plague sliver. Why? It's 2 black, 2 other, just like the Shazam. It's a 5/5, just like the Shazam. And look, although it's a sliver and not a Djinn, you can see there, all slivers deal 1 damage to you during your upkeep. That is a slight play on words. If I had just one of those in my deck, it would be completely the same as the Shazam. But it's not, is it? No, because it said slivers. All slivers do damage to you. That is the route Wizards tends to take. They like to work around the reserve list and chisel away by making cards close. They make a lot of money doing this, such as Jeweled Lotus. Wizards is smart enough to not punch through the reserve list. They like to do this. They like to take the reserve list. Picture this as the reserve list. All the center here is all your heavy, high-end cards. All the outside is kind of the chaff, the weaker reserve list cards. They like to just chip away at the outside, 1 year at a time, slowly working to the center of that Tootsie Pop. That's what Wizards likes to do. They realized that if they just took a big fist and punched it through the reserve list by reprinting Power 9 cards in a Kaladesh gold border, it'd be pretty awesome, right? But the player base of the reserve list would be outraged. Okay? Wizards may not care, by the way, but they would be outraged. There might be a mini market collapse as people try to sell off collections, sell their stuff and say, I'm not investing in this anymore, I'm dumping it. Wizards really doesn't want that. There may only be a few thousand die-hard reservist collectors. Maybe there's only even 1,000. But those collectors have invested years of value into the set. They've got old reserve list cards, but a lot of those people also stock up and have a whole bunch of the new product too because Wizards says it's investable. So, as far as I'm concerned, Wizards is going to continue to just chisel away. When you see the Regent, which is way better than the Rock of the Kerr Ridges that we saw on Unhinged Magi. When you saw that there, it is a better card. But that's Wizards testing the water to see what they can get away with. They are chiseling the outside to work their way inward over the years. They know they can't do it all at once. A front punch would not go well. But if they chisel away and we allow them to get their foot further and further inside the door, it's inevitable eventually they'll get what they want. They'll just keep slowly leaning on things. And as the reserve list player base grows older, as it were, I mean, I'm 46. As we get older, I'm in my 70s. Am I going to care? Am I going to follow it? Really, Wizards has got, 20-something years to wait at most. So every 3-4 years, they chisel. And they chisel to see what they can do. Who knows where it will end? But I can see the road that it leads down. As with many passive Wizards of the Coast, they're a highly intelligent company. They know what their goals are long term. They don't do things in terms of 1 or 2 years like most of us do with our mini financial planning, or us with goals of 1 or 2 years trying to pay down a debt. A big company like Hasbro with Wizards of the Coast under their umbrella is probably looking at 20 and 30 year out forecasts for their company. They are looking to see how they can generate revenue and growth inside their market space for games and development, and Magic is in that area. They realize they need this player base to grow. They need to have access to more cards and more revenue, so they will continue along the path they're taking right now. They know exactly what they're doing. They're not like us looking at short-range goals. They are looking at long-term forecasts for the company. So keep that stuff in mind. All right, guys, don't be too upset about it because let's face it, it's a great game that we still get to play, and I look forward to playing Magic each and every day. Don't forget to bring a friend to Magic. I really hope everyone enjoyed the video. I look forward to seeing the comments in the comment section. Hopefully this video gets passed around to enough people that it can break the 2,000 mark, because the more people who collect reserve lists that know, the more people will be aware of what's going on out there. Again, a big shout out to Unhinged Magi. Thanks a lot, guys. I hope everyone enjoyed the video. Have a great day today. I'll see you all tomorrow. And of course, a big shout out goes out to each and every one of my fantastic patrons who support me on this channel each and every day. You guys are awesome. I hope you're all feeling in the holiday spirit this Wednesday, because we're going to have a blast on the live stream. I'll see you all there. I didn't want you guys to feel left out. Let's take some Chronicles cards. Let's go with the good old Alibaba and, of course, Primordial Ooze. Let's add those bad boys in there. Because remember, one day we're going to get to 10,000 subscribers, and we'll have a party when we get there. Hope everyone's having an awesome day. Stay warm out there, because Canada's getting cold.